Hello, Year 5 and Year 6. Welcome to English Lessons Live with me, Mr. Phillips. It is Thursday, which means it's our last reading session of the week. And we're going to be reading this book, Keeper of the Lost Cities. If you've not already, go down into the description and get yourself a copy of the extract that we can read today. It's quite a long one. We're only going to read a small chunk. So there'll be loads for you to read after we've finished, if the book takes your fancy. So the first thing we're going to do is going to do our predict. But Keeper of the Lost Cities, I've decided it's not going to be enough this time for you to predict. So what we're going to do is this book has got a prologue, or it's called a preface. It's just a page and a little bit of information before the story starts. It's actually a flash forward, so it's an event in the middle of the story. So we're going to read that, and then we're going to make our prediction, okay? I'm going to start with a bit of reading first. So, preface. Blurry, fractured memories swam through Sophie's mind, but she couldn't piece them together. She tried opening her eyes and found only darkness. Something rough pressed against her wrists and ankles, refusing to let her move. A wave of cold rushed through her as the horrifying realization dawned. She was a hostage. A cloth across her lips stifled her cry for help, and a sedative sweet aroma stung her nose when she inhaled, making her head spin. Were they going to kill her? Would the black swan really destroy their own creation? What was the point of Project Moonlark then? What was the point of the Everblaze? The drug lulled her towards a dreamless oblivion, but she fought back, clinging to one memory that could shine a tiny spot of light in the thick, inky haze. A pair of beautiful aquamarine eyes. Fitz's eyes. Her first friend in her new life. Her first friend ever. Maybe if she hadn't noticed him on that day in the museum, none of this would have happened. No, she knew it had been too late even then. The white fires were already burning, curving towards her city and filling the sky with sticky sweet smoke. The spark before the blaze. Okay, so that's the prologue. That is the preface of Keeper of the Lost Cities. What do we predict that this book is going to be about? What is the story of this book? Can you, for me, write down your prediction starting with I predict that, okay? Off you go. Go do that for me now. Okay, so now you should have a prediction. I'm going to have a little go at predicting as well. So, Keeper of the Lost Cities, and in the preface there was quite a lot of, she was being held hostage by what seemed like maybe a mysterious organization. The Black Swan, and they've got the projects of Moonlark and Everblaze. Maybe she is the keeper. The keeper of the Lost Cities, and she is being held hostage for her information. They want to find the lost cities, and they need to get the information from her. So I predict that the lost cities are full of valuable information and maybe technology. The Black Swan is an organization which wants to find the lost cities. I'll capitalize that actually, because the lost cities are in name, aren't they? The lost city want to find the lost cities. Sophie is the keeper of the lost cities, and so she has been captured and is and they try and get the information out of her. There we go. That is my prediction. I predict that the lost cities are full of valuable information and technology. The Black Swan is an organisation which wants to find the lost cities. Sophie is the keeper of the lost cities, and so she's been captured, and they try and get the information out of her. That's why I predict this story is going to be about. Okay, let's read the first little chunk of the text, chapter 1. Here we go. Miss Foster. Mr. Sweeney's nasal voice cut through Sophie's blaring music as he yanked her earbuds out by the cords. Have you decided you're too smart to pay attention to this information? Sophie forced her eyes open. She tried not to wince as the bright fluorescence reflected off the vivid blue walls of the museum, amplifying the throbbing headache she was hiding. No, Mr. Sweeney, she mumbled, shrinking under the glares of her now staring classmates. She pulled her shoulder-length blonde hair around her face, wishing she could hide behind it. This was exactly the kind of attention she went out of her way to avoid. Why she wore dull colours and lurked in the back, blocked by the other kids who were at least a foot taller than her. It was the only way to survive as a 12-year-old high school senior. Then perhaps you could explain why you were listening to your iPod instead of following along. Mr. Sweeney held up her earbuds like they were evidence in a crime. Though to him, they probably were. He dragged Sophie's class to the Natural History Museum in Ballabo Park, assuming his students would be excited about the all-day field trip. He didn't seem to realise that unless the giant dinosaur replicas came to life and started eating people, no one cared. Sophie tugged out a loose eyelash, a nervous habit, and stared at her feet. There was no way to make Mr. Sweeney understand why she needed the music to cancel the noise. He couldn't even hear the noise. Chatter from dozens of tourists echoed off the fossil-lined walls and splashed around the cavernous room. But their mental voices were the real problem. Scattered, disconnected pieces of thought broadcast straight into Sophie's brain, like being in a room with hundreds of TVs blaring different shows at the same time. They sliced into her consciousness, leaving sharp pains in their wake. She was a freak. It had been her secret, her burden, since she fell and hit her head when she was 5 years old. She tried blocking the noise, tried ignoring it, nothing helped. And she could never tell anyone. They wouldn't understand. Since you've decided you're above this lecture, why don't you give it? Mr. Sweeney asked. He pointed to the enormous orange dinosaur with a duckbill in the centre of the room. Explain to the class how the Lambeosaurus differs from the other dinosaurs we've studied. Sophie repressed a sigh as her mind flashed to an image of the information card in the front of the display. She glanced at it when they entered the museum, and her photographic memory recorded every detail. As she recited the facts, Mr. Sweeney's face twisted into a scowl, and she could hear her classmates' thoughts grow increasingly sour. They weren't exactly fans of their resident child prodigy. They called her Curve Buster. She finished her answer, and Mr. Sweeney grumbled something that sounded like know-it-all as he stalked off to the exhibit in the next room over. Sophie didn't follow. The thin walls separating the two rooms didn't block the noise, but they muffled it. She grabbed what little relief she could. Nice job, super freak, Garwin Chang, a boy wearing a t-shirt that said "Back off, I'm gonna fart," sneered as he shoved past her to join their classmates. Maybe they'll write another article about you. Child prodigy teaches class about Lambeosaurus. Garwin was still bitter Yale had offered her a full scholarship. His rejection letter had arrived a few weeks before. Not that Sophie was allowed to go. Her parents said it was too much attention, too much pressure, and she was too young. End of discussion. So she'd be attending the much closer, rather smaller San Diego City College next year. A fact some annoying reporter found newsworthy enough to post in the local paper the day before. Child prodigy chooses City College over Ivy League, complete with her senior photo. Her parents freaked when they found it. Freaked wasn't even a strong enough word. More than half their rules were to help Sophie avoid unnecessary attention. Front page articles were pretty much their worst nightmare. They'd even called the newspaper to complain. The editor seemed as unhappy as they were. The story was run in place of an article on the arsonist terrorizing the city, and they were still trying to figure out how the mistake had happened. Bizarre fires with white-hot flames and smoke that smelled like burnt sugar took priority over everything, especially a story about an unimportant little girl most people went out of their way to ignore. Or they used to. Across the museum, Sophie caught sight of a tall, dark-haired boy reading yesterday's newspaper with the embarrassing black and white photo of her on the front. Then he looked up and stared straight at her. She'd never seen eyes that particular shade of blue before. Okay, and we're going to leave our extract there. There is a couple more pages that you can have a little look at, and we can already see some things from the beginning preface coming in here. We know that the arsonist attacked the bright fires is something to do with it, and the boy with the blue eyes, that was Fitz, I think the name was in the opening. So we can already see some things linking together. Okay, so here are the words I want us to try and clarify today. We've got the word lulled, which is from the preface. We've got replicas, cavernous, and burden. Okay, so lulled, it said she were. What did it say actually? I want to give you the right context. It lulled her to sleep, didn't it? The sweet aromas of the sedative, yeah, the drug lulled her towards a dreamless oblivion. So she was being sedated when she was held hostage. So it lulled her to sleep. We've got replicas. She said that unless the replica dinosaurs came alive and started eating anyone, no one cared. The cavernous room, all the noises were echoing off the cavernous room, and that her gift was a burden. So those are our key words from today. All right, lulled, replicas, cavernous, and burden. Can you pause the video there and write for me what you think these 4 words mean, and then I'll give you my definitions and we can check against them. Okay, can you pause the video there and do that for me now? Okay, if you've not written your 4 definitions yet, make sure you do pause the video. Don't carry on until you've got those definitions and have at least had a little go. Okay, so first of all, lulled. What does the word lulled mean? Well, to lull is to calm or send something to sleep. If you lull something, you calm it down and then you relax it and send it to sleep. So the drugs were calming her and sending her to sleep. They were sedating her. Okay? Replicas is an exact copy or model. Okay? An exact copy or model of something. So when they had the replica dinosaurs, they were an exact copy of the dinosaurs. They weren't real dinosaurs, they were just models and they were copies. Okay? Got cavernous room. So what does cavernous mean? It means it's like a cavern, spacious and cave-like. Yeah? So a cavern is a large cave-like empty space, and for something to be cavernous, it means it's like a cavern. Okay? So a cavern would be like a big open cave with loads of space, really deep and dark. And she's saying the room is cavernous, big and open like a cavern. Okay? And then burden. A burden is normally a load. It's normally something you carry, and it can be a physical burden, like a big backpack, but it also can be a mental burden, a load which is difficult to carry. Okay? And that, yeah, something physical that you actually carry on your back, but it also can be something mental like worries or panics, and you can carry that burden around with you. Okay? Perfect. Well done. Tick off the ones you got right. Any ones that you didn't get right, make sure you write the correct definition next to them there. Okay? Moving on to the questions. Let's move me up slightly like that. So, look at page 4. Find and copy a word, just one word, one single word. Let's make that in bold and underline it. Find and copy a word that suggests the class were forced to go to the museum. So just find me one word that suggests they were forced to go to the museum on page 4. Don't find me anything else that's not on page 4. So a word that suggests the class were forced to go to the museum. That's question 1. Question 2 says, in your own words, describe 2 of Sophie's gifts. So in this chapter 1, we learn about 2 gifts that Sophie has. Okay, so 2 talents. Can you, in your own words, describe what those gifts are? Number 3, it says, why was appearing on the front page a nightmare for Sophie's parents? So go and find that bit and go and read around it and explain to me why that was a nightmare. Surely it was great that she was appearing on the front page of the news. You know, fame and fortune. Why was it a nightmare for Sophie's parents? And then last of all, what impression do you get? That should be do you get. What impression do you get of Mr. Sweeney from the text? Support your answer with evidence. So just a 2 marker. Give me one adjective. For example, I'll think of one that he's not. Brave. I think he's brave because in the text it says this. Okay, do that. One of those for Mr. Sweeney and back it up with evidence. Okay, so you've got 4 questions there to complete. Pause the video there. Remember to keep going back to the text, checking, looking for what your evidence and supporting it, coming back, writing your answer. Once you've got all 4 of your answers, start playing the video again and we will look through and see what those answers are. Okay, pause the video there, off you go. Okay, so I'm going to assume that we've got our answers now. If not, make sure the video is paused and you're not carrying on. We're going to go through. If you got your answers right, give them a big tick. If not, doesn't matter. Make sure you write the correct answers next to it. So, number 1 says, look at page 4. Find and copy a word that suggests the class were forced to go to the museum. So, I'm going to go straight to page 4, which is this one. And where does it say about? This was the paragraph about the museum, wasn't it? So I'm going to skim and scan through this paragraph. Mr. Sweeney held up his earbuds like evidence. So to him, for the word, he'd dragged Sophie's class. The fact that he has to drag them tells me that they were forced to go to the Natural History Museum in Balboa Park. So find and copy one word, suggest that they were forced. The word is dragged. Ooh, dragged. Okay? Because if it was he had brought them or he had guided them, that doesn't make it sound like it was forced. But if he dragged them, then it does sound forced. Okay? Give it a tick if you got that. If not, make sure you write it in. Number 2 says, in your own words, describe 2 of Sophie's gifts. Okay? Well, the first one is, where is it? It's down here, doesn't it? It's this secret, this burden. Ever since she was dropped on her head at 5 years old, what could she do? Well, she could hear people's thoughts. She can hear people's thoughts. It describes it as scattered, disconnected pieces of thoughts broadcast straight into Sophie's brain. So she could hear people's thoughts, and through it, she can hear the thoughts of her classmates not being very nice to her. But what's the other gift that she has? Well, when she's called upon by Mr. Sweeney to answer the question, she has photographic memory, which means all she had to do was look at the sign as she walked in, and it's like her brain took a photograph and she remembers everything. So she can hear people's thoughts and she has photographic memory. Those are her 2 gifts. So don't worry if you didn't put it in an exact answer that I put it in, but if those are the 2 gifts that you hinted at, you can give yourself a mark. Well done. Number 3 says, why was appearing on the front page a nightmare for Sophie's parents? Well, let's go and find that. I think it's on the next page. Skimming and scanning for the word nightmare. Here it is. Her parents freaked when they found it. Freaked wasn't even a strong enough word. More than half their rules were to help Sophie avoid unnecessary attention. Front page articles were pretty much their worst nightmare. So why was appearing on the front page of a nightmare for Sophie's parents? Because they wanted to, what's the exact quote used? Help her avoid unnecessary. They wanted to help Sophie avoid unnecessary attention. I think because they know about her gifts. There we go. Because they want to help Sophie avoid unnecessary attention because they know about her gifts. Okay, and therefore her being on the front page of the paper is the exact opposite of unnecessary attention. It is loads of attention that she just does not need. If you got the answer, give it a tick. If you didn't, make sure you write it down. And last one, what impression do you get of Mr. Sweeney from the text? Now, there's quite a few you could have. You could have cruel. You could have, I suppose, maybe, I mean, cruel's the big one. I'm trying to think of some more interesting ones. You could say unprofessional for the way he treats her. you could say he is he's a bit power hungry, isn't he? Because he's doing whatever he can to like embarrass Sophie. I like the idea of unprofessional. I think the reason he's unprofessional is because he calls her know-it-all. Yeah, he grumbles know-it-all at her, which is not something a teacher should do. So the adjective I'm going to use is he is unprofessional. And I think this because in the text it says that he mutters know it all at her. And obviously teachers shouldn't be doing that. So you might have something different. You might have a different adjective and a different piece of evidence. If you can give me an adjective to describe Mr. Sweeney and you can back it up with an appropriate piece of evidence from the text, then that's fine by me. I'm happy that you can have that mark, okay? Well done. We managed to blast through those 4 questions really, really quickly. We've done loads today. We've read the preface for the prediction. We've then read the actual text, clarified, done 4 questions. Loads of work done there. Brilliant. Remember, there's a few extra pages you can read if you like this extract as well. Last little bit, this is the summary that I'm going to leave you to do by yourself. It says, if you could have a superpower, what would it be and why? So Sophie's got the gift to be able to read people's minds and have photographic memory. If you could have a superpower, what would it be and why would you have that? Okay, so that is it for today. We'll be back on Monday for a bit of writing. Just a heads up that next week is the final set of English lessons live, because then the week after that I'll be getting ready to go back into school and teach again. So next week is the last session, the last 4 sessions, sorry, of English lessons live. Okay, remember you can send all your work to me at year6.rsa at rsa.year6 even at 3-saints.org.uk. See you later, year 5 and year 6. I'll see you on Monday for some writing.